Hang on.
Listen, I've been.
No.
We've been going back and forth.
I answered your question. Do you believe a God exists?
I know that God exists.
You know that God exists?
Yes, I do.
How do you know?
I know because the study that I have done, and I realize that you assess it differently. I have a completely different assessment. It is a Christian-based.
I know. I was a Christian for 25 years. Answer the question. How do you know?
Because I have received messages from him. Now, I
like
know that
what?
sounds crazy. You'll hear that from a lot of other fanatics.
Like Pat Robertson.
It is not on a regular basis. It has only been twice in my life, and it has come through study, and it has come through individual relationships.
What did he tell you, and how did you know it was God?
I know for a fact that it was him.
I know you believe that, and I know that you've said you know that. I'm saying, how do you know? How do you know you weren't crazy? How do you know you weren't having a hallucination?
Yeah, at the time when I actually received the message, I actually had to stand up and walk around to make sure that I didn't just overhear.
I understand
that. Why did you change your mind?
Excuse me?
You still haven't answered the question.
Did he just say that I was lying?
No, I said, why did you change your mind?
Why did I change my mind?
Once you thought you were crazy, and then you changed your mind.
That scientific method that you're speaking of right now, it's like, well, wait a minute. Where did that come from? Was that from someone walking by? It was not. After I did the assessment. And also, it has to do with me being a human being. As a human being, I think we have, internally, the capability of ascertaining when a message, a thought, an attribute comes to us from ourselves versus from a spiritual point. And I know that came from a spiritual point.
How do you know? How do you know? How is that different from the people in the insane asylums who think that they're hearing from angels?
Yeah. I mean, like I said, I realize that you potentially were going to throw it into that category with a lot of other
I'm asking. I'm not.
situations.
Hang on. I didn't throw it in a category. I've asked you a question. You claim not just to believe in God, but to know that he exists. And your evidence for this is that he's spoken to you. And when I ask, how do you know it was God who spoke to you and that it wasn't a hallucination, you have no answer other than that's just what you believe. Is that accurate?
Yeah, faith is the cornerstone of it, correct?
Right. And so you're believing on faith, which means you're believing without a good reason.
No, once again, I go back to you. You believe that Australia is there based on faith, based on
No, I do not believe anything based on faith, including Australia. I believe Australia exists because there's evidence, because I've seen pictures. I don't have to go.
Have you touched it?
I haven't. Listen, please don't make me put you on hold again.
Well,
okay, we've known about Pluto.
Do what you want.
We've known about Pluto for about 70 years. 70 years or so, give or take. Do you know how long it takes Pluto to orbit the sun?
I don't know exactly, no.
It's a couple hundred years.
203, I think.
203. We know that Pluto orbits the sun, and yet nobody has known about Pluto long enough for it to actually happen.
Okay, but even when we go with that definition of Pluto, as we see, the thing that I think that we get stuck up in with quote unquote this physical evidence and stuff like that. When you were a boy, Pluto was a planet. Now it's not.
Planet is a word.
Planet is the label.
All I'm saying
Pluto
is
didn't cease to exist when people changed the word they used to describe Pluto.
We've reclassified.
As we continue to go down the timeline, things change because we're using it or assessing it based on our
Pluto.
Right.
Pluto did not change. Our classification of Pluto changed. What we labeled Pluto as changed. Pluto did not change. And if you want to believe something based on faith, that's fine, but at least be honest enough to admit that faith is believing something without a good reason. Because that's exactly what it is. If you have a good reason, you don't need faith. I have good reason for believing what I believe about Australia, and I can independently investigate it if the question ever becomes really important. You have no good reason for thinking that was God that you heard in your head, and there's no way for anybody to distinguish you from any schizophrenic, from Pat Robertson. To the outside observer, there's no possible way. And while you're free to believe it, and I know that you will, and you even claim to know, you have no evidence, and it's complete faith.
It's not my job to change hearts. It's not my job.
Sure, it is.
Faith. No,
are you not a Christian?
Yes, I am a Christian. Any Christian who knows their word.
Let me tell you,
it's not our job.
No.
To
First
change
Peter.
someone's heart. That is something that God does.
Sure. 1 Peter 3:15 tells you to be always ready to provide the explanation for the faith that you have. Now, can you provide the justification for the faith that you have or not?
Yes, I'm ready to provide that justification.
Please.
We've been asking.
I've been asking you for 5 minutes now.
Who is responsible for changing hearts? Who changes the heart? Do we do that?
My heart pumps blood. I don't know what you're talking about. Are you going to answer the question or not?
Okay.
Because you are instructed. You are instructed. 1 Peter 3:15 is to be ever ready to provide the explanation for the faith that you have.
Correct.
Please provide the explanation for the faith that you have. What is it?
The explanation for the faith that I have.
The evidence that causes you to believe.
The explanation for the faith that I have is that our world is both physical and spiritual.
Prove it.
And the element that allows you to touch into that spiritual realm of our world is through God's word.
Stop.
You wanted my explanation. You
okay.
cited a verse, and the verse said, give you an explanation. I'm giving you my explanation.
Listen to me for a second. I'll accept that. Now, please provide some evidence that your assertion that the world is both physical and spiritual is true. Can you do that?
Yeah, and the evidence that you need is through the faith that you have.
Please, circular argument, go away now. Oh, I can prove the faith because the world's physical and spiritual, and I can prove that the world's physical and spiritual if you just have faith. You know what? I really thought there was a chance that we could remotely get somewhere, and then you want to finish with this circular crap. I apologize to everybody who's listening that I let him ramble on so damn long when he obviously could not justify the faith as he was supposed to be able to. I'm sorry.